Yeah, it is a huge thing. So, yeah, gold becomes the form of currency, and the way that they do it is they create gold coins, right? So like minting of gold coins becomes the first kind of way. Now, the only thing I did want to bring up, and I know I've asked you about this because I always thought it was kind of interesting. Um, Different than the seashells and things like that. I always wondered how enough gold coins got into circulation, because it's one of those things that like you'd have to be accepting that you're giving out gold, right?
Yeah, to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, so
Which
now it
nowadays
could,
isn't a, yeah, people don't think about it nowadays, but
yeah, we almost just accept that like money is just whatever. I go to the bank and I get my money type of
yeah.
situation, right? But I would make the argument that different than the kind of uh, paper money that we have now. Again, not trying to jump too far ahead here. Gold feels like it's a way more valuable currency in some ways, like as a
Yeah.
physical item, not just what it
To
represents.
own. Yeah.
Yeah, because even back then, right, the gold's used for jewelry, gold's used for
Like the royals would like put it in like clothing and yeah.
yes, thank you. That's such a good point, right? So it had purposes and utility from the get go, in that sense. Um, so yeah, I've always been kind of curious. I haven't really ever done any
How
too
yeah.
much research into it. I'm sure it was kind of one of those things where it was a gradual process, right? Where
It kind of
maybe
like
the mixture of the barter system
and
slash
it's like
some other kind
watered
of.
down. It's not like pure 100% gold. They like mix it with like something else.
Maybe. I mean, I don't really think that was the case. I think it was more that probably a lot of people were still utilizing the barter system depending on where they were, right? Because
Yeah,
again,
yeah. This time
um
too.
like cuneiform tablets is more or less exclusive to the Sumerian Empire. Now, that's a large area. um
Yeah.
but and there were versions of cuneiform tablets that kind of existed in other places. But I think for a large part, before gold, people kind of still utilize the barter system to the best of their abilities, right? Again, you're not always trying to trade a whole cow, right? Like, so there
Yeah.
are ways to make the barter system work that don't seem so extreme. Um, but yeah, nevertheless, I'm sure it was a bit of a gradual situation, but it is kind of an interesting thing to think about, right? Like how the gold kind of came into circulation as a like standard form of currency,
Yeah.
um, from
Just the
the
barter
original
system too.
origin of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, to kind of justify whoever had that gold, right? Who's then going to take it and mint it and then put it as a currency. You got to be
Exactly.
willing to give up your gold to be able to buy whatever you're buying,
Yeah.
and then kind of so on and so forth, right? So uh, gold coins become the main form of currency, really, for hundreds of years. Now, there are obviously um, some variations in the sense of, as time goes on, there are other precious metals that become minted as coins,
Silver and
um,
yeah.
to kind of, when it all really kind of comes back down to the value of gold fluctuates. As gold becomes more valuable, you need to have a currency that's worth a little bit less. So then maybe you have silver coins, maybe you have copper coins, maybe you have
Copper, yeah.
whatever, right?
Bronze or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. So just know that precious metals, but gold being the kind of
The
main
mainstay, yeah.
form of currency, or even all the other precious metals are kind of backed by gold in that sense, in terms of their relative value, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, and as kind of the theme that's been happening with this episode, gold coins come out. That's a really great invention, but of course they are not perfect. As you can imagine, we don't use gold coins anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a few issues that kind of come up with gold coins. The one, like we've kind of touched upon it, was the value of it, right? And they kind of deal with that with creating different versions of both in the weight of gold. So
Yes, hence
may
why
like
there's all the old pictures of the scales, right?
yeah. So if you had whatever 1/8 of an ounce of gold coin, there's all different things. So that
Yeah.
kind of allows for a little bit more fluctuation in terms of how much value your gold is worth. So that one was a little bit easier for them to deal with. Uh, the larger issue really comes into play with the fact that carrying around a big purse or sack or whatever of gold coins to be able to go shopping in the local market. Um, One, very clunky, very like gold's not light.
Yeah, you can't
Well,
just
or it can be light, I guess,
yeah,
if you have a
because
really thin amount, but
freeways and all that stuff are very recent and stuff like driving around
yeah.
cars and trucks. That's all still
Yeah,
relatively new.
you're
Yeah.
at best you're on a horse. If not, you're walking, and
Yes.
yeah,
Maybe if you're
right.
lucky,
Like
you have like a mule or something to help shoulder some of the weight, but still you're carrying a lot of goods with you.
yes, yeah. So even if you weren't kind of carrying like a giant sack, even just like a little coin purse, right? That I'm sure you've seen in whatever a movie or something like that. Um, that is a bit of a pain to have to kind of carry that around. But of course, the other thing, and I mean, we still even have it today with purses and wallets and stuff like that. It makes you a little vulnerable, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, it's not easy to hide gold coins. um,
No.
it's not easy to protect it and all that kind of sense. So, and especially at like arguably speaking, throughout our history, things were not exactly the most stable in terms of safety and security, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Um, Even just like the idea of modern policing is a
Still,
relatively new
yeah.
thing, right?
Sherlock Holmes
Um,
times. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so bandits and things like that, just local robbery type of situations. Um, were a major concern for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So the weight that you have to carry, the aspect that you can kind of be like security risk, so to speak,
Yeah. Okay.
of
Yeah.
people robbing you.
Yeah.
Those were kind of major issues. And then there's one other issue that really becomes, I would make the argument, potentially the real kind of sticking point with gold, kind of in connection with those two that I just mentioned. But um, as you can probably imagine, if I had a gold coin in front of me and I gave it to you and I said, "Hey, this is worth whatever, 1/10 of an ounce of gold," right? So
Yeah.
let's say we already like gold has been established as a form of currency. All the
It's now the
value of
accepted
gold
trading
is based off of weight, right? Because it's the amount of gold is equal to the amount of stuff that you can
value.
buy, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, the value. So I come to you and I give you this gold coin and I say it's worth whatever. Maybe it's even written on it. It says it's whatever, an eighth, a tenth, a fifth. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's worth an ounce. I don't know. And it's a giant piece of gold or a larger piece of gold. Um, uh, if I'm doing that, right? So I've told you it's a 1/20th piece of gold. You don't really have, unless you're maybe someone who has a scale around or something like that, you have to pretty much trust that I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. I was
this
gonna say.
1/20th piece of gold is what I'm saying it is. And
Yeah.
not only that, so you have to trust that the weight that I'm saying it is, aka the value that I'm saying it is what it is. But you also have to trust, like what you were kind of also alluding to earlier, that it's pure gold.
Yes,
right?
and not
That
like
like because
cut down with
because weight wise, I can kind of create weight in whatever. You can have an ounce of
nickel,
feathers if you really want
bronze,
to, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
whatever you want, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can add other metals in there to kind of maybe it's just a gold plated coin, right?
Yeah.
That I'm using to kind of trick you in that sense. So for everyday people, they're kind of at the mercy of society as a whole, right? Like they
Yeah.
unless you have a scale, which again, most people do not.
Right. Yeah. Not a gold
And
scale. Yeah.
well, it's really any scale because it's just really just figuring out like you'd have to have something that weighs what the
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
ounce or 1/20th of an ounce or whatever. You'd have to know like I'm sure if you whatever seen in movies and TV shows, or if you're a Christian and like have seen like Jesus when he goes to like the temple when they're like coin like doing the like exchanges or whatever with the Romans.
Oh,
This
okay.
is the this is my childhood kicking in of
Yeah.
things that I had to watch in religion.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. Like whatever. It just really is that you have to have a scale that you can kind of match one for one in the sense of like, okay, this has to be
This
weighted
is
this,
what
so then it
this is
has to be
supposed to
equal,
be.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that technology and the actual physically owning of those things, there's not a lot of people that had that, right? Money lenders and stuff like that
Yeah.
throughout history obviously have had
Wasn't
that.
household
Maybe certain
items.
businesses, if they were wealthy enough, might have had that. But a lot of people pretty much took things at face value, which is a very kind of discerning and difficult standpoint to
Yeah.
take, right? Um,
Yeah. It's an open way of doing it.
Yeah. So we kind of have those three major things, right? We need to know if the value of our gold coins are what the people are saying they are. And then we have the kind of like safety and security combination things, right? It's a pain to carry
Yeah.
around a bunch of gold coins and we're at the risk of being robbed, right?